Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about the ESFJ personality. So starting off, the ESFJ's cognitive function stacks in Myers-Briggs is they lead with extroverted feeling, the first function, or their first function, FE. Their secondary function is introverted sensing, SI. Their tertiary or third function is extroverted intuition, NE, and their final function or fourth function is introverted thinking, and TI. So that being said, they can be seen as pretty similar to ENFJs. I think a lot of ESFJs may mistype as ENFJs because they both lead with extroverted feeling. And I could also see ESFJs mistyping as ISFJs because ESFJs and ISFJs are mirrors in socionics. They are sister types, so they have the same cognitive functions but just in a slightly different order. So, but I would say the biggest difference between an ENFJ and an ESFJ is ESFJs are more concerned about how people are, like the feelings in the room, how people are feeling and how they can help people. And ENFJs are concerned with that, but ENFJs do it in more of a leadership way, and they're more seen as like a teacher type, whereas ESFJs are more of like a caregiving type. They're kind of stereotyped as, let's talk about Molly Weasley in Harry Potter, the mother of the Weasley family. She is a stereotypical ESFJ. She's very giving. She has a bit of a feisty side, but her main concern is her family and their well-being. And that's pretty, I know that's a stereotype, but that's a pretty common theme that I've seen with the ESFJs in my life. I don't know if I really have any ESFJ friends. I can't think of anybody that I am completely sure that they're an ESFJ, but I do have ESFJ family members, and my best friend Rachel, who's an INTJ, her younger sister, not her youngest, but her younger sister is an ESFJ. So I grew up, because I've known her almost her whole life, I grew up obviously being around her whenever I was at Rachel's house or just in general. And then also my Nana, my only living grandparent, is an ESFJ. And I also have a cousin. He is in, I did a vlog like a year ago where I was in Europe. And this actually shows both my Nana and my cousin Mitchell, who is also an ESFJ. I probably have other ESFJs, but those are the ones that I am very sure of are ESFJ. That being said, from all of these people and from ESFJs that I've encountered, or just from the stereotypes about ESFJs, they are extremely good with people. All three of the people that I named have such a way with people that it's beyond words, and they're able to just mold so easily in a group setting, and that's because of extroverted feeling. But they do it even more so than an ENFJ would, but it's also in a practical way. So ESFJs, like I mentioned, are very concerned with family, They're very concerned with harmony. They're also a very democratic personality type, and that doesn't mean that they're that they're a Democrat or something. So they're just very people oriented. Like, as I was saying about the stereotype of Molly Weasley. Molly Weasley was known for making sweaters for all of the family members and Harry, and absolutely making a feast every holiday or whenever her kids or family was together, or friends. They're just very accommodating people. And I know with my Nana, she always, anytime I come over, she's always like, oh, what can I do for you? What can I make you and stuff. And she's not really a big cook, but she gets whatever together, whether that's fruit, crackers, cookies. I always grew up, she's British, I always grew up drinking tea and cookies with her. And she is just very much a central figure of the family, and she always tries to get into everything that is happening with the family. But that being said, I would say one of the things that I've noticed in real life, and also about the type, just doing research and all kinds of other things, is some of the main things that may be seen as a weakness or a flaw for ESFJ is, number one, they can easily lose themselves in a crowd. And this means that not only are they just extremely good at molding to social situations and being what objectively is seen as best for a group, they also will lose themselves and have a hard time figuring who they are. From what I've noticed about ESFJs, unless they're very developed, they have a hard time being by themselves, and if they are by themselves, they want to constantly be preoccupying their mind by doing stuff. They're not really the type that necessarily will sit down for hours at a time and not be doing something. Also, with that, in socionics, and I'm going to say it again because I just want it to be glued into your mind if you're just now getting into socionics or you don't really know socionics. The P and the J in socionics for introverted types are flipped. So, for example, I talked about the ISFJ in this video. In socionics, they're an ISFP, and vice versa. So don't get it confused. But in socionics, and I would definitely say that this is true, it does transfer over to MBTI, is ESFJs, their conflictor, or the most contradictory personality for them to be in contact with is an INTJ, which would be an INTP in socionics. So whereas the INTJ is very independent in their ways of thinking, they are always looking to innovate and draw their visions from their mind into reality, and are not always seen as the most practical people and extremely logical. They're seen as very logical and kind of cold, and maybe even abrasive to certain people. And I know these are all stereotypes. I don't think that necessarily about the INTJ. So that being said, the ESFJ is just completely different than that. And they are, again, harmony-based, democratic. They want to be around people. They would rather do what's best for the group than do what's best for themselves. and in a way that's very self-sacrificing, just like the ISFJ. They have a self-sacrificing kind of tendency with people, and this is just completely foreign to the INTJ. They will see ESFJs as, and again this is stereotypical, but they could see ESFJs as very inauthentic people, and that just kind of will change with the wind. And in some ways that's true, but that is, and with the INFJ or INFP in socionics, my relationship with ESFJs is the supervisor and supervisee relationship. This means INFJs or INFPs in socionics are ESFJ's supervisors, which means that, and ESFJs are the supervisee, meaning it is an asymmetrical relationship, and INFJs typically regard, well, they have a tendency to maybe see what ESFJs are doing and really question why they're doing that. And I'm just saying it in kind of nice terms, but this, if it isn't checked, this can be kind of a straining or bad relationship. If, say, the supervisor or supervisee feels that they are being misrepresented or overextended in some way. And I'll get into that in the future. But for me, even before I knew about socionics, I definitely can see how I have that relationship even with the people that I just stated. I do find that it is kind of an advisory type of relationship in some ways, but obviously with my grandmother, my Nana, she's always been an authority figure for me growing up because she was my grandmother. So another thing that ESFJs really value is respect and knowing your place, and they're very people-oriented, but whatever is common for the environment, they want that to be respected. So for me, I have definitely had disagreements in the past, but I respect my grandmother for who she is, and I respect ESFJs because I think they bring a lot of value to the table. So from my experience, I was able to overcome maybe that asymmetrical relationship. That being said, I don't often, I've talked about this in the dating video about types, but ESFJ is another type that I don't necessarily seek out in romantic relationships, just because I know that cognitively it may not be the best for either of us. But that being said, I am definitely a lot more open to ESFJs than some other types. I don't know, again, I don't know how informative this video is, but I hope that this kind of sheds some light on the ESFJ personality, in my perspective as an INFJ. Like I said, ESFJs are some of the nicest people, some of the most gracious people. They really try to do what's right and what's best. And unfortunately, through that, they have a tendency to lose themselves. And actually, at least from what I have seen, and this isn't always true, but just as like an INTJ can be kind of a polarizing figure to some people, ESFJs can also come across as polarizing. And I haven't ever heard this be talked about, or at least I haven't seen a video or read something, but I think because they always are trying to harmonize with other people and be there for other people, and they change so easily, if they aren't as developed, or they don't check themselves, they can often find themselves like eating their words, or kind of finding where they were kind of, let's say, I'm just going to talk about shapes because I don't want to talk about like anything extremely serious in this, but let's say in one group the ESFJ said, oh, my favorite shape is a triangle, and triangles are the best. And they realized before they said that everybody in there, or at least the majority of the people, absolutely love triangles, and triangles were their favorite shape, was their favorite shape. But let's say even the next day or the same day, the ESFJ is in a different group, and they say, oh, my favorite shape is a square, because they realize that everybody in that group loves squares, or maybe the majority love squares as their favorite shape. So if you're following this analogy, kind of they're always trying to be as harmonious as possible and try to be whatever is the most popular point of view. They try to be that, and because of that they can often again lose themselves, and because they lose themselves, certain people along the way that see the inconsistency of what they're claiming or how they're presenting themselves may see that as problematic, and because of this they can have situations where this doesn't always turn out in their favor. And I don't think they mean to do this. Again, I would say this more happens with people that aren't as aware of this tendency. But I would say that a lot of ESFJs are aware that they do mold and mend to other people. I forgot to mention this. I do know, I just thought of someone that I used to be really good friends with an ESFJ in college, and I knew her in high school as well. And actually, one of the reasons why, and I think she's a great girl and all this stuff, but one of the reasons why we're not close friends anymore is there was a situation where, I forget what it was, I don't remember the specific details, but I do know that there was someone else and there was one of our other friends involved, and in my opinion it seemed very clear that this individual was doing something that wasn't right. And I'm not saying that they were doing something completely wrong or like it was bad or something, but I mentioned this, or we were kind of all there together, and I said this to the ESFJ, and at the time we were really good friends, so I assumed that she would, well, first of all, she noticed it as well, but because it was more of a popular opinion to go with what the guy said or whoever it was, she decided to go with that. And it wasn't just that, it was kind of, this was kind of leading up to that. I did notice that she kind of would be very easily swayed in some situations. And this bothered me at the time. And I had a conversation with her about it. And then I ended up realizing that I had to end the friendship, or just kind of drifted off. But that being said, she's a nice person, all of that, but it did definitely have an effect, and I can definitely see this with INTJs that interact with ESFJs. And I know this kind of has gone off the rail a little bit, but I want to kind of go back to the interaction, the conflictor interaction in socionics. And again, in the future, I want to do socionics justice, so I am working with a certain person about coming up with videos and ideas so we best represent and get it, or represent it in the most clear way possible. But I do want to talk about the conflictor relationship as it applies to ESFJ and INTJ, INTP, and socionics. So the interesting thing about conflictors is, or that relationship, every single type has one, and it is an equal relationship, meaning both parties see the flaws of each other, and it's not just a one-sided thing like an asymmetrical relationship. But anyways, the thing that people have to be careful about with conflictors is oftentimes from a distance your conflictor can seem like someone very appealing to you, that you want to get to know and that you would see as valuable, and they just come off with a more positive light. But when you get closer and closer to your conflictor in a metaphoric sense, or physically, you realize that the cracks begin to show, and the relationship tends to not be successful. And I'm not saying that in a conflictor relationship you can't get along, because like I said, my best friend, her sister is her conflictor, but they have a very good relationship. That being said, they have very different views on the world, but because of I think the fact that they grew up in the same family and they have relatively the same morals, they were able to kind of work it out. But yeah, that's just kind of a PSA. So I know that this was a little all over the place, but hopefully it's helpful, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. And again, if you want to be interviewed, or you know of someone that you think would be cool to be interviewed on the channel, please let me know, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.